on this computer. Hey guys, thank you for joining us today. I have Victor Reynoso. He is a good friend. He's also a real estate investor. He started investing. I mean, he's got a great resume. He started investing in 2012. He did his first flip in 2014. So far, he's done 8 flips. He's got 4 buy-and holds. So he's got 4 rentals. He's done 1 wholesale. He's got 1 under contract. And he's been an entrepreneur for 4 years. And he has a great story to tell. We're good friends, and we're gonna just talk shop. So Victor, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for agreeing to do this with me. And again, it's just you and I talking like we always do, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So
thank you for having me.
Take us to the beginning. The first question I want to ask you is, who was Victor in high school? Who was Victor in high school? Tell us that story. How did who was Victor in high school?
Victor in high school, taking me back. I was very short. I was one of the shortest guys in school. I had the heart of a lion. I joined football specifically because of my heart. Everybody was so much taller than me, so much bigger, but I didn't let that stop me. I wanted the experience. I wanted to be around the guys, and I joined football. And that was one of the best memories I have of my high school years.
Were you a student? Were you a good student? Were you like me that I only cared about getting a 65? Who was Victor academically? Were you one of the cool kids? Were you one of the quiet kids? Who were you academically to that respect?
I would dedicate more time on things that I was interested in. So computer class, I was interested in that. Photography class, math, I was interested in math. But I wasn't really a student that would, wake up every day and just like you, not try to do my best in school. It was more like I'm gonna be out there hanging out with the guys. I was quiet. I was liked by everybody, but I wasn't really too popular.
Okay.
Once I joined football, I became a little bit more popular. I was, in front of more people, and but school, I just wanted to get by pretty much.
Got it. So take us back to the beginning. I know you shared your story with me. You came, I know I've talked to your dad. I know your dad's a good man. Victor, by the way, which I didn't mention at the beginning of this podcast, is my contractor. So he does, him and his dad own a construction company, VDL Homes, and they're out of here, the Northeast Pennsylvania, and they are for me, the absolute best contractors in our area. They do all of my flips. When I do flips, quality of work is important. And I know your dad, and talking to your dad, I know that your dad came here from the Dominican Republic and brought you guys here. Can you share that? Can you share a little bit about that story with us?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you for the kind words. Our motto is integrity, making sure that we do the best in whatever it is that we're touching, construction wise, and with the family and friends. We're always there to help people. That brought us here in '98, and
from where?
With the American dream.
From where? Where did that bring you from?
We came from La Romana.
La Romana, Dominican Republic, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep, East
Yeah,
Coast.
sorry, I don't know if I mentioned that a moment ago, but I just want to make sure it's clarity for the listeners. Okay.
Yep. And I came here when I was 12 years old. I became a teenager here in the States that summer that we arrived, and it was a struggle for a long period of time. It was a big shift coming from DR to here.
Okay, so just to be clear, so English is your second language, just like it is for me.
Well, no, actually, English is my first language.
Okay. So tell us about that. So you were born in Dominican Republic, right?
Correct.
So tell us about that. So you learned English first in DR?
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
tell us.
We my parents kind of prepared us for the American life. They put us through private school in La Romana. There's a private school over there called Abraham Lincoln School in Central Romana, which is a sugar refinery.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned English from 4 years old. learn Spanish through the school because they taught Spanish as a second language to us.
Okay.
So
I didn't know
yeah,
that. That's really interesting.
yeah. So when I came here, it's an English school. So the majority of teachers are from England. So
Oh,
I came here with an English accent, which I had to.
that's interesting, Vic.
Yeah, yeah. I had to reframe everything that I kind of learned over there to kind of fit in here with the American population. And yeah, I used to say mom when I used to say mom.
Really?
So yeah, so I went through a bit of a teasing phase because of my accent when I started school here in 8th grade.
That's interesting. A Dominican with an English accent and his first language is English. That's really cool, man. That's really, really cool. I didn't know that about you, Vic. That's really cool.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, so you came here. I know that your dad was a superintendent, right?
mm-hmm.
Am I correct?
Correct,
I know your dad has
correct.
shared that, and you have shared that with me. Your dad was a superintendent at a. By the way, your dad is also an engineer in Dominican Republic. In the Dominican Republic, he shared that with me,
Yes,
and you have shared that with me as well. He's a graduate engineer, right? Like by
yes,
trade, that's his
yes.
trade.
He's
Really,
graduated
really
civil
smart.
engineer. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he is like an artist with his with construction. I can see where the quality of the work comes from. I mean, he's like an artist. Okay, so your dad came here from the Dominican Republic. He was an engineer, and I know he shared it with me personally that he came here sacrificing to give you and your brother and your sister, right? You have a sister as well, right?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
To give you guys a better life, and he sacrificed everything, his career and everything, to come to the United States and give you guys a better life. And that's
Right.
what most of our parents do, right? And most of our parents do. Tell me about that. So your dad came here. Tell us about that. Your dad came here. He was a superintendent in a building. And tell us about that.
Yeah. So he didn't jump straight into being a super. Um, his first job here in the States was actually at um, a cardboard processing manufacturer, a plant up in
Factory.
yeah, it's a factory. They produce cardboard for
Mhm.
major retailers, and then from there he transitioned into being a super for a company in Union City. They had buildings in Union City, West New York, North Bergen. They owned a lot of buildings, and he was in charge of. I mean, he will get called for everything because of his knowledge, but I think he was in charge of 4 buildings.
Okay, and that's how he started. He started working in that. Is that how he started construction, and that's how he started or he was already doing construction in the Dominican Republic as in his trade. Is that how
Yes.
he learned it, and then that's how you learned it?
Yes. No. Since he graduated from the university being a civil engineer in DR, he would actually build villages for the Central Romana,
Okay.
which is the sugar refinery company.
Yep.
They were also they have um, how do I say it? The company is divided into different things. So they have agriculture, they have construction, um, and then he was in charge of some of the construction over there. He will build roads, he will build villages, he will build aqueducts, because he did a lot of things. He had his hand in a lot of things for the company,
Awesome.
and
Awesome.
he gave all that away to give us the American dream. Yeah, big
Awesome.
sacrifice.
Okay, perfect. So you came here. English was your first language, right? So you were the English from England.
Mm-hmm.
You came here. Your dad worked at a cardboard factory at first, and then he started managing 4 buildings. Did I get that right? He started doing some
Correct.
4 buildings. And so, okay, so when did your love for real estate start? Why real estate? Tell us about that. Tell us how you got started in real estate. Take us to the beginning. Why real estate? When did you fall in love with real estate?
Sure. So I actually fell in love with real estate after owning my first property.
So tell me the
We
story of your first property.
Sure. My father always had this idea of owning property and have the property pay itself off with tenants. And then once the property was paid off, he always talked to me about, that would be your profit. It was always a long-term thing with him looking into the future. but he would instill in us. So he always talked to me and my wife. My wife and I, we married in 2007, and we purchased our first property in 2012. So around 2010, 2011, he was heavy on the conversation of us. You guys should buy a multifamily property and have the tenants help you pay your mortgage, and you guys live in the property. So later on, I came to find out that's what's called house hacking. Mm-hmm. And that's the route that we went based off of our father's, well, my dad, you know, his advice to us. And around 2013, we heard an infomercial on the radio for fortune builders. And I was still reluctant to even learn more about real estate. My wife was on board right away. My dad was on board right away. The infomercial pretty much said, come out to this location so we can teach you more about real estate. And so I was still reluctant to go there. And my wife, I don't recall exactly, but my wife pretty much told me something that I was like, okay, I'll give this a shot. And being in that small seminar, it was a one-day shop, that opened up my eyes a lot because I was able to see the numbers on the board. And they were talking about how much money is needed for retirement.
This is 2012, Vic, or what?
13.
2013.
Yeah. So I started diving more into real estate after owning the first property. I started getting more knowledge, and I was able to see how much money is needed for retirement. You know, at that point, I got to see how much money I was needing so the money can outlast me and not me outlast the money.
Ooh, that's big. And I want you to repeat that again, Victor, please, because that's what real estate, it's one of the foundations of real estate, right?
Yes.
Please repeat that again.
Yes. So for me, it was a big eye opener. They showed us number wise how much money is needed to outlast the person and not the person outlast the money.
You know,
they were talking about inflation. They were talking about the history, how things have just keep going up and up and up. And I'm very thankful that I was swayed to go there. And that was a big turning point in my life.
That's fantastic. So education. Okay. So you went to this workshop. You educated yourself, I suppose. So you fast forward, you educated yourself, you got your education. We're always big on specialized education and on this podcast. I'm always talking about, if you want to invest in real estate, you need an education. You need that foundation. You can't do it, so you can't do it by winging it, right?
Correct.
So you're going to burn yourself out. But here's what I gathered so far. Your father always had the idea, thinking long term.
Correct.
Right? Of buying real estate, renting it, cash flowing, and having your tenants pay off. House hacking, basically. And basically that's house hacking. For the listeners that don't know what that is you buy the property, you go in with a low down payment, you live in it, you have 3 other units if it's a quad, 4 unit, and the tenants pay your rent. You could leave either you're cash flowing or you're debt free if you buy right. I'm sorry, not debt free. You are they pay your mortgage for you, so you live rent free. That's what I meant.
Correct.
Rent free. And so your dad, that's awesome that your dad was a major influence in your life to kind of push you. And then your wife, Daniela, she's also a good friend. Daniela, it's also, you got a good woman that actually encouraged you and empowered you and said, let's do this, and stood by you. And that's important, man, because that's important. Woman that pushed you and said, hey, we can do this. That's awesome. Okay, so you got your education in 2013. Then what? What happened next?
We dove into the Fortune Builders program. We went to their seminars. Went to a seminar in Orlando for wholesaling. We went to a seminar for rehabbing, and we dove into their books, all the knowledge that they provided with our investment with them. And that allowed me to go ahead and buy my first flip in 2015. right before 2015 finished. We purchased in December, and I still look at the video from time to time. We walked that property January 1st.
Okay.
We went and walked that property, and we started doing our scope of work January 1st, 2016.
So I want to dig into that first deal, right? Because that's your first deal as an investor. So the first one, you needed a place to live. You bought a house, you bought a place, and you house hacked. That's a different experience than actually looking at a house and saying, or looking at an asset, right? And saying, I'm going to buy this thing. I'm going to invest XYZ amount of dollars. I'm going to buy it for XYZ. I'm going to invest XYZ amount of dollars. And then I'm going to profit, tanto, right? Whatever that dollar amount is. So tell me how you overcame. What was your mindset? Tell us the story and your experience through that first deal, because the first deal is always the hardest. I don't care. It's always getting the first deal is always the toughest. Once you get your first deal, the second, the third, they just come. You get over that hump. You get over that mental fear, that block, right? Then you become a believer. So tell us about that first deal. How you came about it? How did you manage your mindset? What was the conversation with you and your wife? What was your wife telling you? What were you guys discussing? How were you guys looking at this? How did you overcome? I'm sure you had some fears. We all do with our first one.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm going to backtrack a little bit. I'm just going to say that the property that we purchased, our multifamily property, was a three family home. That property allowed us to purchase a home here in the Poconos.
The first one, right? That's your first, the one you lived in.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So it was a income producing property. Allowed us to buy another property here in the Poconos, and it almost paid this property off based off of my income that it was generating. So we saw the progress there, and we found this property on auction.com. So it was an online auction for our investment property. And I was still working in the automotive industry. So I was working for Toyota.
Job.
Yes, I had a full-time job. And and then the mine started, right? So here I am. It wasn't even a 9 to 5. It was a 7 to 6 job. And the conversations was, how am I going to do this? How am I going to manage that property while I'm in here 24/7? It felt that way. But we took the leap of faith because of my father, because of his expertise in construction. And I felt a little bit more relief that I can purchase that property, still have a full-time job, kind of leverage myself into him and have him do the day-to-day construction and what needs to happen with the flip going on. And also, my son was born during this time.
Okay.
My son was born in December 2015. So it was a lot going on.
So you went into this flip, you bought it, right? You felt comfortable that you had your dad, which is a huge deal. You had your dad that knew construction, and you kind of felt safe there. And we're going to talk about if you didn't, right? Because most of us don't have that opportunity, right, to have someone in construction that knows, right? But you had your dad, you went in the deal. Tell us about that first story, that first flip, because usually I always like to hear these stories because these stories are usually interesting and, horror stories, and there's always issues and there's surprises, and there is the, the growth that you get from that first deal, because you learn so much from the very first deal. You learn stuff. I know I learned a ton from my first deal. But tell us about it.
Yeah, we learned a ton. I didn't go for a light rehab. I didn't go for a medium rehab. We went for a heavy rehab.
So explain that to what's a heavy rehab to the listeners that may not know what a heavy rehab. What does that mean?
So a heavy rehab, everything pretty much has to get touched. This property was pretty big. It had 3 levels.
That means windows, roof, sheetrock, paint, floors, all the big stuff.
All the big stuff, minus the roof. The roof was the only thing that was good on this property.
Okay.
But we did decks. We had to take down an old deck, put a new deck up. We painted the foundation. Everything inside had to get touched. And then I had the fear as an end result project that I was fearing that the property would sit even after me renovating it. So I even went above and beyond of putting things into the home that as an investor, through the years of experience, I did a whole bunch of stuff that I shouldn't have done, which is spend money on specific things that the end buyer would have to get.
You didn't know.
So yeah, no, I didn't know. I left money on the table because of that. But that's part of the growth. Part of doing it is, you finish it and then you ask yourself, okay, what did I learn?
Yes.
And we even there's a lot of stuff, Martin. We even took vacation while this was going on. We took a cruise. We took a cruise that summer. The property was already done, thankfully. We took that vacation while the property was on the market. So that was an experience within itself, dealing with the realtor while you're away. We're in South America, and communication becomes a little bit scarce. But I learned a ton. Thankfully, it was my father doing the construction. The construction didn't happen, obviously, as we planned it.
Tell me about the surprises, because there's always surprises, and people need to know that when you're rehabbing a property, whether it's a rental or whatever.
The biggest surprise that we got, to be honest with you, was a copper pipe that was stuck behind a wall in a corner that was leaking, and it wasn't leaking water, thankfully. So what I did was, I had a plumber there. Through my learnings, the plumber was doing a pressure test on the home. The home was vacant, so we were pressure testing the home and it wasn't holding pressure. So we're putting air into the system and the air was escaping somewhere. And we had to find this leak and we couldn't find it. So it took us almost like a couple hours to find it. And finally we found it. And I believe I still have the picture in my phone, but we found this pipe that somebody tried to fix it. And no lie, they put like a pound of putty on the outside of the pipe to try and keep the water from from leaking. And it's hilarious. It's putty, like it's a big bulge of putty on a small 1/2-inch copper pipe. Like it was just
ridiculous.
But so I learned from there on. I was like, okay, now if I have a vacant home, I need to pressure test the system.
Lesson.
Because it's air. You're not dealing with water. So yeah, I'll always do that on my properties when I'm purchasing them, or after I purchase them. And that was a big surprise. And we also had a surprise with the floor in the living room that was it pretty much had moved. So I think the home settled and the floor wasn't leveled. So we had to rectify that by putting a huge beam in place and doing everything proper. And that was another big surprise. And we also had another surprise on the exterior of the home, where that part of the home had settled and the foundation, the concrete foundation, had separated. So we had to go in and rectify that. We had to chip away all the concrete. We had to put mesh, just strengthen everything up on that corner of the home. And again, it was just little speed bumps on the road. I really didn't, fall off the cliff like, oh, this is gonna, damage our sale or anything like that. For me, it was just like, okay, it was just delay after delay, and that's all it was. We had to rectify it, and from start to finish, it was a 9-month project, which is 3 months over.
That's a long time, Vic. As you know, as a flipper, as an investor, that's a long time. That's a really long time. That's a really long time.
And the one good thing, even though it took long, for me, I took it as a sign of good, where the end buyer came and actually gave us cash for the property.
Awesome. So you wind it up on top, you wind it up in a good place. So I want to ask you about, you said you had the fear that the property would sit. So you had that fear in the back of your mind. That's a fear that listen, I don't care how seasoned you are or not. if that is a fear that every flipper, I know because I flipped a bunch of properties, and that's a fear that every flipper has, whether they admit it or not, in the back of their mind. How long am I going to sit on this, right? And the longer it sits, the more exposed you are, for the simple reason that the market, if you've lived through a couple of market cycles, the market can shift on you any moment. And if I'm caught in a market cycle in the middle of a downturn with a beautifully redone flip, if my margins aren't large enough, that could put us in trouble, right? If I'm not
Correct.
insulated, if I didn't run my numbers, my ARV, my after repair value, is not tight, and I had a big enough margin, that could put us in trouble. How did you manage your mindset around that fear? How did you manage that? Because a lot of times is that fear and that mindset that paralyzes new investors from taking action. What if, right? The constant what if this happens, what if things can happen no matter what, right? So how did you manage that fear?
So leading up to the end of the project, the fear was there. I had my ARV with what I thought the property was going to sell for, and we actually interviewed 3 realtors, and then came the discussion of the ARV. If I remember correctly, I believe I wanted to list the property at 180, and they were in at 150.
So wait a minute. I want to make sure, before you go on there, I want to make sure.
Mm-hmm.
You mean to tell me that you actually interviewed in your first deal, you went to a real estate agent after you finished the rehab? You didn't do it before?
Correct.
Is that what you're telling me?
Correct.
So that's a typical newbie mistake.
Mm-hmm.
That typical newbie mistake. You always go to your agent before the fact, right? Because your agent is part of the team, and say, hey, what do I need to do to get the maximum dollar for this property? So, okay, so tell us about that. So
yes, so we used our programs that we acquired as investing into fortune builders, and our program, based on the numbers we ran, we were comfortable with what the program was saying. But no, we did not interview any realtors beforehand.
okay.
Correct.
Would you do that
knew
now?
what we
Would you do that now?
well, I actually, yeah, definitely.
Would you do it the same way you did? I'm saying, would you not interview a realtor beforehand now as a seasoned investor?
Oh no, absolutely not.
You
have to do, yeah, you got to do it at the beginning.
Yeah,
you got to do it at the beginning,
Yeah,
because
go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
no worries. Yeah, definitely. So you gotta interview the realtor in the beginning. As Martin says, he's part of the team. I didn't know that then, and my main focus was the construction. I guess the fear of the property sitting and rehabbing it didn't allow me to think of, hey, I need to get my realtor on here so we can see what I need to do. If I put this in there, would that increase? Would that decrease the value?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have that conversation. I didn't have a realtor in my team. It was me, my wife, and my dad. And we were trying to figure it out on our own. So yeah, we were getting close to finishing the project, and I asked the realtors, different days, different time to come out and see the property and see if my ARV was on par with the market. And
do you realize how risky that was? You realize how risky that was? So how off were you, or how off plus or minus were you on the numbers?
So we thought we could have listed it for 180. Based off the size of the lot, based off of how much we put into the property, we felt confident that the market would allow a sale of $180,000. And the realtors were telling me no. He says, if you want to sell this property fairly fast, I think you should go in for $150,000. I said,
30 grand difference, brother.
Yeah. So I was like, whoa. So, that was a big gut check, big slap into reality. And we discussed and we decided, okay, 180 is probably too high, but I can't do it at 150 because that's too low. With the surprises, we went over budget. which we had budgeted for that property with contingency. I think it was about 55,000 for the heavy rehab. And we went into the 60s. I believe we went into 65, 65, 66. And so, yeah, so I'm trying to recuperate that bit of a loss on the sale. And we decided to list it for 169. So I said, okay, let me drop it to 169. Let's see where we're at. Let's see how the market responds. And we had a bunch of showings. And I believe this one lasted, I think it was around 45 days on the market.
Okay.
Around 45 days on the market.
That's an
Yeah.
eternity for a flipper, man. You know
Mhm.
that. That's an eternity for us. 45 days,
Correct.
that's a long time.
Yes. And so we ended up selling for 156.
Okay. All right. So you came close. So what was your biggest lesson on that in that particular deal, Vic? Your biggest lesson on your
The
first deal?
biggest lesson is not to discuss with the realtor.
Get the
Not to
realtor in on
discuss with the
your realtor is part of your team. You mean to discuss with the realtor right up front if your numbers
Correct.
are right, and what you
Correct.
put in it, right? That's
Yeah,
awesome.
I feel once I have gone through it and I look back, I was like, how can I learn? How can I improve? And the realtor is a key part of the team because they see a lot of homes. Not only do they know the market, but they see the home, they see the layout. They can even kind of they just know. It's they have a system where they know. I said, okay, like Vic, for example, I went to IKEA and I bought like closets, not a closet, sorry. Well, I ended up buying a linen closet to install into the bathroom
Mhm.
because the bathroom didn't have any closets. And I was like, just putting things so the end buyer can say, okay, like this person really cares. Um, I ended up buying a table for the first floor bathroom. So the woman that would be purchasing the home, she can do her makeup, like little things like that, but it was still money being spent.
Mhm.
And yeah, so that's pretty much what I learned. And having the realtor at the beginning, you kind of see the project through,
Mhm.
and they'll let you know, okay, if you do this and this and that, it'll pretty much be worth this.
There you go. That's it. That's it. So anyone wanting to flip, listen to Vic from his mistakes. You
Hmm.
want you know me and you've done this before, Vic. We go see a property. Hey, we're gonna buy this. Yep. Okay. Next time I'm visiting that place, it's with my realtor, my listing agent. Listen, dude. Here's what I'm doing, and my contractor and my realtor are there, and I'm like, okay, what do I need to do to get the maximum to sell this price at maximum price?
Correct.
And my contractor's there, my realtor's there. You need to do this, you need to do that. Is that feasible? Where's my numbers? Because it's all about the numbers. Yes, right, Vic? It's always all
Absolutely.
about the number. So Vic, tell me something. When did you start to, so you did that one and then you did 7 more flips from there after that one, right? Because you've done a
Yes.
total of 8 flips. And of course you've gotten better. You've learned a ton each and every time. When did you buy your first buy and hold? And then why did you start with the rental versus started building a rental portfolio versus just continuing to flip only? What happened
Sure.
there in the mindset?
Sure. So we started building our buy and hold last year. We purchased our first buy and hold at the beginning of the year. I believe it was in February. And that was a distress sale. One of the cheapest homes that we've bought. That one we bought for 30,000. And the reason why we transitioned into the buy and hold was because we got into a bit of I would call it a bump in the road in the flipping side of things, where we had issues with a contractor in 2018.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. We're talking about a contractor having an issue with the contractor. Tell us about that.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
So life happened.
Mhm.
Dad had to pretty much move to Florida.
Mhm.
They're a little bit older in age. They're in their 60s, but we decided as a family it would be nice for them to go to warmer weather.
Mhm.
It gets pretty cold up here in the Northeast. And he went over there. He spent a year in Florida. But I still have my business here in the Poconos, and I had to get another contractor. So 2018 was 2018 was a big year for us because we learned a lot. we bought 2 properties that year to flip, which we've always only done one. Leading up to that point, we always, buy, fix, and flip. And this year we had enough revenue where it was like, okay, we can do 2 properties this year. Now my dad's not here, but there's other contractors out there. So we followed the system that Fortune Builders teaches us, and that's it's a bit complicated system, but it's a system of how to deal with contractors to get to your numbers for the rehab.
Mm-hmm.
And we had projected $65,000 going into this heavy rehab. I'm sorry, I'm thinking of the second property we bought. The first property was a $35,000 rehab. It was a medium rehab. And that property, we got hit with storms that took power away from the home for 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
The contractor got hurt on the job.
Mm-hmm.
His helpers pretty much left him. So it was him only to work on the property. I ended up working on the property because things had to get done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that property took about 4 months to finish when it should have had taken 4 weeks, 5 weeks the most.
Yeah, 6 weeks. I was right, 6 to 8 weeks. Wow.
Yeah.
So our biggest challenge for flippers, and I consider myself a flipper. I flipped. Haven't done much flips lately, but our biggest challenge as a flipper, investor, flipper, is contractors. I mean, that is the biggest challenge, is finding good, reliable contractors. Unfortunately, it's just one of those things that's one of the biggest challenges is dealing with that. So that's interesting that you as a contractor had to deal with contractor issues. So, okay, so you transitioned into buy and hold in 2018. Tell us about that. So you said you had a snag. You were telling us how you had a snag in 2018, and continue on there if you don't mind.
Sure. Yeah. So we had that snag, and we pretty much try to see the direction the business is going, our company is going, and so that snag allowed us to have a conversation, and the conversation was, okay, we don't get paid until we sell this property.
Mm-hmm.
Let's transition into buy and hold, where we have a cash flowing property where it's giving us, X amount of money every month. And we don't have to wait until the property sells to actually see income. So we decided to go that route of building a rental portfolio. And we were able to purchase 3 properties that year.
Awesome.
It was either 3 or 4 properties. Can't recall right now, but yeah, it was. We met you that year, and we started using OPM,
Mm-hmm.
which is other people's money. We have private lenders that we have a program where we give them a certain amount of interest on their money, and that's when we learned the BURRRR strategy, which is my favorite strategy to use in real estate.
So what does the BURRRR strategy mean for those listening that aren't familiar?
Yeah, so the BURRRR strategy is buy, renovate, rent, and refinance.
And repeat.
And repeat.
And repeat it again.
Yes.
So recycling money. So tell us on those deals, did you do any creative financing? Let's talk a little bit about creative financing before we wrap it up here. So did you get a chance to do any creative financing with sellers or anything like that?
Yes. So, well, the first property that we bought that cash. We renovated it. And
your own cash, or was it OPM?
Yes, it was my own cash.
Okay.
We had enough to buy, renovate it, and it actually had a tenant in place already, Section 8 tenant, with very good rent coming in. So that's where we ended up buying that property. Our second property, we got through you, and we got creative there. That was the first time us getting creative. Where
that was the one I wholesaled you guys.
Correct.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Correct. And yeah, we got private lenders to give us a down payment. The owner of the property owned the property outright.
Let's talk about that payment. Let's talk about that deal. All right, let's talk about that deal, because that's an interesting deal. I want to share that particular deal, Vic, because when you start, you know how you and I are always talking about asking better questions. When you ask better questions, you get better, you get more resourceful. When you get more resourceful, you figure things out, right? Your biggest asset is your ability to be it's your resourcefulness. So that deal, which is actually how I met you guys, how I met your wife. And I'll share how I got the deal, and then I'm going to let you share how we put the deal together, please, for the audience, because that's a very unique deal. And that's going to show the opportunity for anyone wanting to come into real estate that thinks or believes that you need your own money to get in this game. Okay.
Correct.
I'm gonna just share with you how creative we got on this deal. So I have a shirt, I have a hoodie, I have hoodies that say I buy houses cash in the back. And I was at the post office. Ironically, the way this happened is I was at the post office picking up some mail from my P.O. box. And this man was next to me. And this man comes up to me and he says, "Hey, you buy houses cash?" And I was, reading my mail. And I thought to myself, how the hell does he know? I forgot I was wearing the shirt, right? So he looks and I go, "Yeah, what do you got?" And he goes, "Oh, well, I have this house in Mount Pocono in that area." And I said, "Absolutely. Oh, what do you got?" I left to look at it. He said, "It's rented." I said, "Sure, let's talk." We went in his car. He called his wife, which actually winds up being one of our mortgage lenders, right? He calls his wife. They talk about it where he's got her on speaker. We're talking, and boom, we scheduled the meeting. We scheduled the appointment for me to go see the property. I don't personally buy and hold single family properties, but it was cash flowing. But Victor did. Then I went. I think the next day or a few days later, I went to a real estate investors meetup, and this is why if you're new, you need to be around where investors are. Vic, I can't, you know how I always talk about that. You need to be around the energy of the people you want to become. So I went to this RIA meetup club, and I got up, I introduced myself. I said, "Hey, I have this deals, cash flowing, boom, boom, boom." And your wife was there. Your wife was actually sitting at the same table with me. Your wife was there. And she goes, "I think I saw that. Is that the deal on Craigslist, blah, blah, blah?" And I think you guys had already looked at it. Right? You guys had already looked at it. I was like, "Yeah, that's my deal." She goes, "Yeah, we'd be interested." And then she connected me with you, and you and I went over there. And so then from there, take the story from there. I met you. We met at the property. We went and we looked at it. And then what happened? How did we get creative in making that deal? Because none of us had any money in that deal.
Yeah. All my money was tied up, and I was interested in the property. It was already rehabbed. The tenant was in place. They had good tenant history, and we got creative. So I reached out to friends of the family. I reached out to family, and I took a private loan for the down payment of the home. So the owners of the property owned it outright. They took a down payment.
What was that down payment? What was the purchase price? Let's get into the numbers a little bit.
The purchase price was $55,000.
55. Okay. What was the down payment?
The down payment was $17,000 and some change.
Okay. All right.
Let's call it 17. So I took a private lender, gave me 17,000, and then I took control of the property. I took control of the property.
Controlling the property, controlling the asset.
Correct. The owners were holding paperwork. I took control. There wasn't much to do to the property. We had a relationship with our local bank in town.
Community bank, yes, local community bank.
And they didn't have any season requirements.
No seasoning requirements, yes, correct.
So seasoning requirement, I didn't have to wait a certain period of time before the bank is able to refinance it for me. We pretty much gave them the paperwork, and we started the process of refinancing the property. And the property got appraised by the bank, and it appraised at $90,000.
And you bought it for 55. Holy smokes, guys. So listen up. I was wearing a hoodie that said I buy houses cash. Guy asked me, I put it on the contract. I sold it to Vic. Vic bought it for $55,000. That was his all-in number. I think that was my wholesale fee too, Vic, right?
Yes.
That was my wholesale fee too. I think I had a $5,000 or something like that wholesale fee. I don't remember. So that was your all-in number, $55K. The property, you had instant equity of $40,000. I mean, instant equity. How long did it take you to refinance that property?
It was 45 days.
So in 45 days, so Victor went, got someone to lend him 17,000. We worked out a deal with the seller. We said, hey, hold the paper, hold the mortgage, be the lender for, I don't remember, a year. I don't remember what the number was. I don't know. But we did the note together, the promissory note.
Yes. I think it was on
6 months.
paper. I think it was a year.
I think it was a year. We said, hey, we're going to refi. We made it clear to them. You made it clear to them. We're going to refi this property immediately. We have our bank lined up and everything lined up. You went to the banker. The banker said, okay, we'll refinance this. They appraised at 95, 45, $40,000 in equity. Your net worth instantly went up by 40 grand by making this move. This one move you made, your net worth went up by 40 grand. Okay.
Correct.
The importance of being around investors if you want to invest, right?
Absolutely.
This is where the deals, you got to be around investors if you want to find deals, right?
Absolutely.
45 days later, you refied the property at 75%. The bank gave you 75% of the 95,000 of the appraised value, right, Vic?
Yes, of the 90.
Yeah. So were you able to cash out any money on that deal by any chance?
Yes.
How much did you cash out on that deal? Remember?
Yes. I'm trying to remember. I don't remember the exact number. It was under 10 grand.
Okay, so let's just say 8 grand.
Yeah.
Let's say 8 grand. So you cashed out 8,000. So you bought it. So listen to this, guys. He bought a property. He got the down payment borrowed. I don't know. What did you pay that guy? 10% on his money, or
10%.
You gave him 10% on the 17,000. You gave it to him within 60 days. Within 2 months, he made 10% on his 17,000. You went to the bank. You refied. You got the money out. You paid him plus his 10%. You paid the original sellers that were holding the note because you needed to be in control of that property to refinance. You paid them their money back, whatever the balance was of the 55 less that whatever 17,000 you gave them.
It was
and now you had a net of $8,000 in your pocket, which, by the way, because it's a mortgage, you don't pay taxes on because it's a loan. So that's tax-free money, and you still have 25% equity in the property, and you have rents coming in that's paying for that, paying your mortgage now every month, which means it's increasing your net worth every month. They're paying for your mortgage, and you're putting some money in your pocket. Yes or yes? Every month, and your cash flow, right? That's what I'm talking about. That's the beauty of this business.
Yes, and I was not networking before I met Martin. That networking was another piece of the puzzle that was missing to the business on moving forward. We were backtracking in a sense because we weren't networking. You know, we weren't out there. We were so involved in our business. We kind of didn't have the time. We just didn't position ourselves to network. And if you have an hour or two to network in the business you're in, it's tremendous power. I encourage everyone to network.
So you started networking. What happened with your business after you started networking? I know your wife was, I know when I met your wife, she had told me, she was like, she had gone to this meetup, that meetup. I mean, she was everywhere. She was like, I went to the Jersey one, I went to that one. She had gone to meetups and I was like, holy smoke, I never been to that one. I never been to that one. Like, she's just like, she was just everywhere.
Yes,
she was working.
Yes, absolutely. So we didn't have any babysitters. I would stay behind with the kids, and I was a bit of an introvert. So I gave that opportunity to her. I say, hey, okay, I'll stay with the kids, go out and network. And she went all over. She drove an hour's away, one way, just to network. And that helped our business tremendous. And then since then, my parents came back from Florida. Then we got babysitters, and then we started networking together. And yeah, our business has grown tremendous.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Tell me something, Vic. What is the conversations that you and your wife have around wealth building? What are the conversations? Because, in the Latino communities, we're not having that. You were fortunate enough. You were blessed enough, brother. You don't realize that. You were blessed enough to have your dad talk to you about these things. Most of us don't have that. Most of us, you know, we don't grow up. Our parents come here, right, to this country where, you know, as a firstborn American, first generation American. My mom worked at factory, came here. They're just too busy working hard, sacrificing for us to give us the American dream, to give us a better life, right? So what is the conversation? So you were blessed enough to have your dad, despite the fact that he was here working like the rest of our parents, right? Those of us that first, you know, coming here as immigrants are just working hard to make a better life for us, right? First generation. What are your conversations with your wife, right? Because a lot of us are not having that conversation with we're not talking wealth. We're not talking building empires. We're not talking creating something better we're talking creating something better for our kids, but we don't have the education. A lot of us just don't have the education. We've never been taught. We've never had these conversations, right? Our parents don't have these conversations with us. So what is the conversations you and your wife have around real estate, around investing, around the future, around your children? Like, what does that look like? Can you give us an insight on that?
Sure. You know, with everything that has transpired and with our experience in real estate, now our focus and our goal is to own apartment buildings.
Nice. Mm-hmm.
We want to own, I mean, you know, the sky's the limit, but our number right now is to have 150 units. That's where we would like to get to, and then keep building from there. You know, being around you and your expertise in running the numbers, that's what we're looking at 16 units and above for our next purchase. You know, we still want to buy and hold. We still want to, what's the word I'm looking for? We just want to keep building. We want to build. We want to provide value for the community. We want to have good housing for people. We just want to keep providing, you know, and God willing, I'm able to be successful. And I want to bring a bunch of that stuff to DR, where I grew up.
Okay.
You know, it's a third world country. I want to provide housing for the less fortunate over there. It's my life mission. And I want to start it here first. You know, it's a little bit more attainable here with what we know, but I still want to do stuff for my people. You know, I always have that in mind. I want to get to a level where I want to do this, not just here, but also in La Romana.
Yeah. You know, Vic, you and I, we've talked, and you and your wife came to the event I hosted this December, our goal setting event. And I host this yearly goal setting event where we get together and we just get clear. Clarity is power. We get really, really clear on what we want, why we want it. And the why, a lot of us start investing in real estate and we think it's just for the money we want to be. And when you go 7 levels deep into your why, it's never because of the money. It never is. It's usually, I saw my mom and my dad. For me, I saw my mom working in a factory and we were poor, we were broke, and I don't want that for me. Or I live in those conditions and I want to now give an opportunity with this money I'm making so others have an opportunity that they don't have to go through what I went through. It's always emotional. It's always deeper. It's always deeper than the superficial. I want a nicer car. I want a bigger home. You can only have but enough of that stuff. And then there's no fulfillment. Then there's no meaning, right? And usually when you know this because you're also the co-host of our Real Estate Investors Club meet up here locally in Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania. And we talk about that all the time. We always share that. We always talk about how it's the money is just the initial, the superficial. But when you go deeper, it's always deeper. It's always more than that. It's always more than that.
One of my favorite, sorry to cut you off.
No,
one of my favorite quotes is how to help poor people is by not being one of them.
Thank you. So Vic, you shared a whole lot of wisdom and a whole lot of nuggets. here today. And what are two of your favorite books? So tell us what's your favorite business book and what's your favorite personal development book that you would
Hands
recommend
down,
to
ha-
any listener.
yeah, hands down for favorite personal development book, which goes into business also, is Think and Grow Rich.
Mhm.
I definitely advise everybody to grab a hold of a copy and read that. Um, and business, yeah, that's a tough one for me. I dive into so much things. Um,
So Think and Grow Rich.
mhm.
Any other read, a recommended read for anyone?
Well, one book that did good for me, Dean Graziosi wrote that book, and I believe the name of that book is The Millionaire Mindset. I get confused because I have a couple of books that pretty much have the same title, but
Mm-hmm.
it's a Dean Graziosi book, and that's a self-development book.
Mm-hmm.
It helped me a lot. It helped me clearly see a lot of things. As a kid, I was fearless, and making the transition of coming into the United States, um, there's a lot of people getting into my ear. There's a lot of laws here, and I kind of just shrunk as a person. I
Mm-hmm.
kind of didn't want to get in trouble. I feared being in jail for whatever reason, but not that I was doing illegal stuff. It's just all the stories of everybody telling me things, and I just wanted to go the right path. And I kind of shrunk as a person. And that book from Dean Graziosi brought me back to my childhood, and I'm carrying that with me now. It put a fire in me where I was fearless. I didn't fear anything, you know, and I kind of feared a lot of things living in the States.
Mm-hmm.
I became an introvert. And then since, a couple years ago, I started transitioning myself into growing. I can't lead my family if I'm kind of taking steps back. So yeah, I wish I remember the book off the top of my head, but yeah, Dean Graziosi wrote that book. Yeah.
Got you. So one last thing.
Hmm.
How has personal development, because people think real estate is it's just real estate investing and it's a skill. That's just a skill set, and I always say this: 80% mindset, 20% skill set equals 100% success. So how has personal development helped you improve in your business and your overall life? Working on you, because I know that you've done a lot of work on you. I know you personally, but if you could just share a little bit to the list with our listeners about that, how has personal development helped you get even better in your business and everywhere else around in your world?
Yeah, it's helped me tremendous. I see things different now. In real estate, we're dealing with people all the time. Um, whether that's on the buy and hold and you have a tenant, whether that's on the fix and flip, you're still going to be dealing with an end user. So you kind of have to cater to that end user or the end buyer. For me, it's more of I'm connecting with people. It's not about the money for me. When I'm touching a project, a property, I'm doing this knowingly that this person is going to be living there for a long period of time. And I try to provide value to them and their home so they can enjoy, for years to come.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm more of a listener now. I want to listen. I want to see what's going on with people. How can I help them? How can I, steer them away from this wrong mindset? Because a lot of people, the saying is, if you're in the picture, you're not going to see it.
Mm.
So I like to listen to a lot of what people are saying and just give them advice. You know, Experience is the best teacher, right? So if you're learning from your mistakes, which is what I have done, I've done a lot of self-reflecting,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to listen to people because I don't want them to, go the same route. And if I've gone that route and I've helped, turn things around and I've overcome it, I'm gonna provide that to them and say, well, I did this and that, and I think it'll be a good thing for you.
Awesome, brother. Thank you so much for sharing, Vic. And if people want to get a hold of you, um, how would they get a hold of you? How could they get a hold of you? So if someone wants to either bring you a deal, someone wants to work with you, hire you as a contractor, maybe they want to partner up with you on some private money or something, right? How would they, and act as a private money lender and put their money to work for them? How would they get a hold of you, Vic, if they wanted to?
Yeah, they can
Contact?
reach out on my website, which is www.vdlhomes.
V like Victor,
Correct.
VDL Homes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So VDL stands for Victor, Daniela, and Louis,
Mhm.
which is our team, our real estate team. So vdlhomesinc.com. And I'm also on social media, Instagram, same, VDL Homes Inc. on Instagram. And Facebook. I have my business page on Facebook also, VDL Homes Inc., where there I have my before and after albums of my projects. If I have any deals, I also put it up there. And yeah, just reach out.
So they can reach out to you through social media. Any email?
Email, yes. The email is vdlhomesinc@gmail.com.
VDL Homes Inc. at gmail.com. Okay, so someone wants to bring you on as a contractor. They want you to look at something. Those are services that you're currently, you still have, you have your business, so you have your contractor business, so you're doing work there. And you're also an investor. You have your investor business. Hey, Vic, thanks a million for coming on here. Before we end this podcast, I just want to kind of give some pointers of some of the things I took down and some of the lessons I learned from you that maybe our listeners can take away from it. So one of the things you mentioned was your father always had an idea of buying and renting and cash flowing, and he projected that onto you, and you and your wife, and he encouraged you guys to go and get a home. Then you decided you got your education in 2013, and guys, that's extremely important. Education. You can't. Don't make the mistakes that I've done. I made the mistake. I went in and I started buying without having the foundation education. I offer a class on that, an online course if you're interested. Elite Wholesale Strategies.com. EliteWholesaleStrategies.com. I'll put it in the show notes. And then, Victor, you talked about you had fear. You had the fear that the property would sit on your first deal. And when you over improved, right? This typical rookie mistake. You over improved, and you learned that. One of the things you learned was that this is a team sport, and you needed on your first flip, you needed to get your realtor in before you even close on that deal, so you can have clarity on what the cost, what you needed to do to get to maximize your profit, right? And get the true ARV, the true after repair value. Then shortly after that, you realize that you needed cash flow instead of just flipping, and that's why you realize. So there's a difference, guys. There's a difference between active income and passive income, and as a flipper, that's an active income stream. You have to understand that. Flipper is a great paying job, but it is a job. Let's just be real with that. It's a job.
Absolutely.
It's a risky job, and it's a great paying job. I still flip every once in a while. I like the thrill. I like to take something that's not so good looking and putting it into something that's very good looking. But that's a job. So that's when you decided you needed cash flow so you can keep that consistency, cash coming in. And then you also learned the power of networking. You wasn't really doing much networking. You said
the power of having a coach. Don't want to miss that on this podcast. Having you as a coach, tremendous help.
Yeah, so you learn the power of coaching and having a mentor, having a coach, someone to guide you through some things. And then you realize your true passion and your purpose is to help others. You want to create housing, good, safe, affordable housing in the Dominican Republic, ultimately from where you're originally from. And 2 books you recommended, Think and Grow Rich, and the Dean Graziosi, I think, is Millionaire Mind. I know the book. I own the book too. I was trying to think of the book, and I can't remember the book. And the one very, very important thing you said at the very end, Vic, was when you're doing any rehab or you're doing a flip or a rental, you're thinking of the value as you're doing the work that you're providing when you're doing the rehab, the value of, that home is going to provide for that family or whoever the end buyer is. So you're thinking about the value ahead of time. That's awesome. That is awesome. When you think of value first and you think of providing value for others first, you just can't, you will always win. You will always win when you provide value. You become valuable in the marketplace. You will always win. Brother, thank you again for showing up and allowing to do this interview with me and sharing your wisdom, your knowledge with our listeners. And I know that your words in your experience, in your story will encourage thousands, if not millions of people now and in the future. Thank you again, brother. Really, really appreciate you.
Thank you for having me. My first podcast. Super fun. Thank you again.
Okay. I just